Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Unlocking Venture Capital. I'm here with my good friend Justis Mendez, who's the GP of OneSixOne Ventures. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. So, Justice, you have had quite a journey to get here, and you're in New York now, right?
Yes, I am. I am currently in New York, but I'm always on the road. Too
You
many
are
flights.
always on the road. Yes, I really want to dive into that because you're someone who is really out there all the time, you and your entire team, building community everywhere you go. And so I understand that that's a really important strategy to your investment thesis. So, can you tell us a little bit about your investment thesis and why this is such a big part of it?
Yeah, 100%. So a little bit more about our thesis. We really like technical founders, and obviously with how fast everything's kind of going today, we like to play more in the infrastructure space and kind of skate to where the puck is going. So that includes like AI and cloud infrastructure, enterprise software, some deep tech. But I mean, a majority of the fund is now leaning more towards just opportunistic founder bets. So really betting on the team since we're placing these early stage investments. But back to why community is so important for us. When me and my co-founder Pablo first met, it was 2016. We met at the University of Florida. And we realized all us and all of our friends were launching companies, but there was no early stage venture capital. There was no community for founders and funders. And there was really no educational playbook to teach us like how to really launch and scale a business. So after talking amongst ourselves, we realized that nobody else was going to launch this platform that we needed ourselves so desperately. So we decided to do it ourselves. So we started off hosting events in 2017, getting together founders and funders once a month. We ended up building one of the biggest tech communities in the Southeast, the biggest in between Orlando and Atlanta. But it wasn't enough. The founders needed a lot more than just a monthly happy hour. So
Mhm.
we decided to build an educational platform, boot camps, workshops, executive roundtables, bringing in founders, bringing in investors, people who are a lot further along to try and help everybody. And it was super popular. We were just having fun doing it. And it was something that we were passionate about ourselves. And, as we continue to build the organization and scale and grow, the pandemic happened in 2020 because, like I said, it was just a fun side project. And when the pandemic happened, we already mapped out. Funny enough, that's why I'm really important on like setting goals. Before that, we just had a meeting discussing like what's our long-term vision. Because I was like, it's fun what we're doing and it's driving impact, but like what's the end goal here? And me and Pablo were on the same page. We wanted to launch an accelerator, eventually launch a fund, but we didn't know how long that was going to take. So the pandemic was like this really big like force function that we were like, okay, we can't do anything in person anymore. Let's just go into our long-term vision. So in 2020, we ended up launching an accelerator, completely free for founders, completely virtual, bringing in people like the founders of Whatnot, fastest growing marketplace in history, the VP of growth at Spotify, the chief ethics officer of Airbnb, and each week was a different topic, concluding with a demo day. And within about 18 months, we had four cohorts, 40 pre-seed companies. We helped them raise over $13 million. They generated 15 million in revenue, and one of them got acquired. And at that point, we were like, you know what? Like, we built something special, but we need to figure out a business model because we can't just keep doing it completely free, but we
Yeah.
also have
I was going to
money.
ask you, I was like, how are you fronting this at like 26, 27 years old? That's crazy.
Yeah, it was difficult. It was a lot of time. It was very time consuming saying I
Yeah.
want to. So we asked the VCs, we were like, hey, if you're doing our deals, like, is there an opportunity to, get some carry as a scout, for your
Mm.
fund? And to our surprise, everybody said no. And we were like, it's a little bit more common on the West Coast and in the Southeast. Nobody
That's
even knew
so
about
interesting because you're like, but you are getting the upside from
that.
us doing so
Oh,
much of value add. So therefore, you don't even have to hire a platform person at this point. Why are we not able to get any carry? No, no, no. So that's so interesting.
yeah. So then from there, we looked at each other and we were like, okay, well, you know what? If there's no room at their table, we'll build our own table and add more chairs. So
Good. So you're competing against the people that said no.
exactly, exactly. And now, funny enough, like six or seven of them are now LPs in our fund.
Of
So,
course, because they need your access.
exactly. Yeah. So launch fund one, we were 27, and the rest is history. Now we're scaling it, and we're super happy with what we're building.
And yeah, and so you're also a graduate of Coolwater, which is one of the new kind of VC schools. I call it a VC school. There's probably a real name for it. And yeah, and from, just through the grapevine that their tuition is really, really high, like 20K per person or something or per team. And I was just wondering, like, what were your key takeaways from these kinds of programs? And also just kind of hindsight, did you find that because you also have to put up a GP commit, in order to raise a fund, was that would that money have been better off in a GP commit kind of pool? Or what are your kinds of reflections for new GPs that are out there wanting to follow this kind of journey?
Yeah, so we actually did I did Venture Capital University and we did Decile Group or like what is it called? Founders Institute. We didn't do Coolwater actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we did that. Both programs were great. I had to pay out of pocket actually for the Venture Capital University program. I had a credit card and I had no money and I just put it on the credit card. Yeah, me and Pablo maxed out all of our credit cards,
This is
launched.
this is founder grit though, right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, credit is terrible. But
Don't ask.
yeah, exactly. But and we didn't put up a GP commit, and it was funny enough because at first we did get questions on like, hey, like you need to put up a GP commit. Like, are you guys
Okay.
doing it? And
Yeah.
literally just looked at LPs, and we were just like, dude, we both sold our cars, we maxed out all of our credit cards. Like, believe me, I am committed, and
Yeah.
we put up every single last dollar we had to make this happen.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we were like, we have no more cash. Yeah.
That's a really great story because it shows a lot of foundation in terms of like what you are able to relate to when it comes to working with the founders that you have.
Yeah, I mean it's funny enough because one of our founders was telling an LP this because a lot of times we'll have LPs ask for portfolio company references,
Right.
and one of the founders was just like, I met them when they first got started, and it's so great to be growing in tandem because we do lean more towards a lot of the younger founders that we invest in. And I think that's one of our superpowers. Obviously, we've backed like exited founders that are much older than us, but
Yeah.
a lot of the younger founders, it's cool because we're not that much further along in the journey. So we create like this different dynamic of a relationship where, we get a lot more information and can really help them build versus being, some old person who, is so out of touch with the reality of what it means to be a founder now. So, people ask us like, hey, I see the t-shirt. Are you a founder? I'm like, I'm a founder, but I'm a VC firm. So it's just a little bit different, but not too much different.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like because a lot of VCs are also exited founders. And so you're kind of getting that education at the same time.
Yeah, 100%, right? We're learning along the way. One of the first people we ever pitched was a guy who ran a big VC fund, and he goes, "Look, Justice Pablo, you guys are not going to raise a fund." He was, oh yeah, he was like, "I love your hustle. Everybody knows you guys, but like, go out there, launch something, sell it, then you could launch a fund." Then he saw all the progress over like 6 months, and he calls us up and he's like, "Where do I wire the money?" It's just so funny because. You know, and I tell it to founders all the time, like you have to take no with grace because no doesn't mean like no forever.
Hmm.
It just means not at the moment. So just continue to keep them updated, send them monthly reports. Hey, this is how I'm thinking of things, this is how I'm growing consistently. And just because they pass like at one moment in time doesn't mean that it's a no forever. And a lot of great firms feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Even like, one of the big accelerators, their venture-backed startups hear 230 no's after they already have their pre-seed from seed investors. And you're going to hear a lot more no's than you're going to hear yeses. But hopefully, yeah. So that's very daunting. I wrote an article about that too. I want to switch gears because you have such an interesting story that came out. And I want to talk a little bit about your personal background. So you've shared publicly that you survived a kidnapping at 14 and experienced gang violence and incarceration. And so how did that shape these formative years of yours? How did it shape to you in terms of your investment thesis now?
Yeah, so I truly believe that the people who have these kind of stories, and it doesn't have to be where like, okay, they got kidnapped or, they went through a lot of gang violence, but we want to back people
That would be
who,
a very small target market if
yeah,
that was
yeah,
your
for sure.
only target
I,
for
I
founders.
wouldn't, I wouldn't have any founders to
You
back
will
for
have
sure.
no founders.
But something about overcoming adversity, and that's
Yeah.
within every single portfolio company that we try and back. Like we have a founder, her name is Daniela Blanco, and she had to leave Venezuela when things were just hitting the fan. And she
Mm.
came to New York and they told her like you'll never get into NYU and you'll never be a scientist. And then she ended up, launching her company, getting on the Disney Channel, and she just raised her seed round, and we got in like a really early pre-seed, and she's just absolutely crushing it with big contracts. And it's just like that's kind of the founder profile because, as you know, it's such a daunting journey.
Yeah.
We don't want people who are just so easily like, okay, I'm just going to give up and I need to push forward because usually, like, the brute force part about this journey is the only constant. Like, you're not going to have all the resources you need. You're not going to really know what to do next. But if you're just willing to out hustle, outwork, and never give up, like, you're going to have some sort of success in some form or another.
Yeah, that's really great. And also like, can you share a little bit more about what exactly happened to you as a teenager, as much as you're comfortable with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I grew up with a single mom. She worked in a factory for 30 years, had like three kids starting at 17 years old. So, she didn't really have as much time or attention that a kid would want. And statistically, what ends up happening is that these kids end up, getting sucked into the street life. So that was me, another statistical outcome. So at 13, met these big gang members and everybody else, started selling drugs at a really early age. And by the time I was 14, there were some guys, from, the neighborhood, and they ended up, robbing me and kidnapping me and dumping me in a front yard after like an hour or two. And two of them were 25. The other kid was also 14. And it's crazy enough, like 2 weeks after that happened, that 14-year-old kid ended up murdering the pitcher of my high school's dad.
Mm.
Yeah, he ended up like these are like real people who are like dangerous and should not be in society. So yeah, he ended up showing up to this kid's house, and they got into a fight, and his dad came out, he pulled a gun on him. His dad came outside and was like, "Put the gun down, my son beat you fair and square," and he shot him in the chest like three times. And at 14, he held his dad in the middle of the street until he died in his arms. Like crazy story. And so yeah, that ended up happening. That, kind of definitely I didn't sleep for 48 hours. I was like, pretty scared, shitless. And by the time I was 15, there was a murder at the top of my street. I found out it was my blood cousin who I didn't know lived one street away from me. 1 year after that, my aunt committed suicide overdose on heroin because she couldn't take the pain. So in the suicide letter, she said that she wanted me to finally meet my family, me and my two sisters. So I
Mm.
met my dad's side of the family at a funeral when I was 16. My grandfather was still selling cocaine and gang banging. All my cousins were gang members. And I remember just being like, oh, wow, like I finally have family. 2 days after the funeral, they saw me and my friends and like robbed all my friends and then like didn't rob me. So it was just like, I was like sad again. Like, man, I thought I finally met my family. And like now I realize like these are people I should not be around.
Yeah.
Then when I turned 18, my best friend, my brother, but he's not blood. He ended up on first 48 for a gang murder, and it was all over national television. He ended up doing 14 years in prison. He only had to serve, I think, about 11, which was a lot. When he got out, I had to teach him what a laptop was and download LinkedIn and get a Gmail and everything. But yeah, that ended up being like a forcing function for me leaving, Cleveland and leaving Ohio. And I moved to Florida and slept in a walk-in closet and started my own company. And, it was just like, I think that these are the stories that really form you.
Mhm.
And I truly believe like what defines you is what you do when you have no way out, when your back is against a wall. And I think that that's sometimes when you're most clear. You build clarity sometimes in these moments. Like what is important? And now I feel like I understand risk, I understand legacy, I understand like how to also being in the streets actually taught me a lot about business, right?
Yeah.
How do you deal with people? How do you build a reputation? How do you try and understand and see if somebody's lying to you or they're not giving you all the information? What are their intentions, right? Because some people will blindly take advice, but you have to also think like, what is this person's benefit of giving you this information? So
That's a good question.
yeah, all right. So like, do they have an ulterior motive? Are
Yeah.
there somebody's just like, hey, I'm giving you this information, I'm giving you advice, but I have no upside. It's like, okay, they may be more truthful, but somebody might be telling you something for a reason that they have personal gain potentially out of it. So just like really trying to understand the human component of things And I mean, that's VC to begin with, right? Like 101. You're really, especially early stage, you're not looking at all these spreadsheets and quantitatively, assessing a company. You're really trying to see like, who is this person and are they going to succeed? So I feel like it really helped me a lot in business going forward.
And so where you are now, what kind of a business, the fund is the business, are you envisioning? What kind of fund do you want to end up with?
Yeah, I mean, I want to have a tier one fund, right? Like, I truly believe that, in the next 5 years, we can have $1 billion AUM. I think that we can be a fund that is, internationally recognized for some of the exits. And I think most of all, what we really want to be known for is not being a picker. I think a lot of fund managers think about like the selection process itself, which is super important,
Mhm.
just like selecting the right companies. But I think what a lot of people forget is being a great builder. Like, I don't want to only be known for being a great picker. I want to be known for being a great builder. Meeting great founders, exceptional people really early on and helping them build their business, helping introduce the right customers, the right advisors, helping them, meet their first couple of hires, helping them raise additional capital, and being known for being the most value add VC on the face of the earth. And
Mhm.
that's what we get out of the events. The event serves as a function for us to be exceptional at pipeline, so like top of funnel deal flow, but then also really serves as a major platform to help our companies with introductions to customers, advisors, early hires, and then raising additional capital because we'll have, much later stage VCs come and speak at our event. And then eventually they're like, hey, by the way, I love what you're building. Do you have any later stage companies that are graduating? And, we'll make those introductions. And a lot of the times it goes really well.
Well, I certainly hope a lot of your portfolio companies get the benefit of that.
Yes, they do for sure. We're fortunate that probably about 95% of our portfolio, without us even asking, have explicitly told us like you're number one on my cap table, even though we're not, the biggest check.
Yeah.
And co-invested with amazing people. I mean, some of the people that are on the cap table, I mean, the Winklevoss twins, Sam Altman, right? Like really, powerful and connected people. But I think that there's a certain element of just rolling up your sleeves and getting your hands dirty that you can't replicate.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think you and Pablo both have such a great knack of making people feel human and comfortable. And it is really missing, I think, in this industry. So it's really, really great what you have done in terms of a ripple effect. I think you're actually I was just thinking about it now. I think you're actually the youngest GP to be on my podcast. So I do also want to ask you about your experiences writing that very first check. You guys move faster and more fiercely than a lot of other emerging funds, for sure, by far. A lot of them have a lot of paralysis when it comes to hiring, when it comes to writing the first check. So they just kind of sit on their LP money forever. And so you guys moving so much faster and like I said, much more intentionally than others. What was your experience like with your very first company and also who was it? What was the check size? What stage was it?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, being a founder and with that founder mindset, right? It's back to like the move fast and break shit, right? Like we're gonna say that we're always perfect. We're always trying to be better and better each day. I met this guy, Kevin Turner. He was the former CEO of Sam's Club and the COO of Walmart. He started off as a cashier. And it's like a crazy story where he ended up being worth $14.5 billion at the time that we met him when he gave this speech. And he
Please
said,
tell me that's your portco.
no, I wish, I wish. I remember he said the Kevin Turner you meet today is not the Kevin Turner you'll meet tomorrow because every day I'm still trying to become better. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's worth $14.5 billion. He's still
Yeah.
trying to be the best version of himself. So I have no room to be like, okay, I made it. So yeah, so we're always trying to get better. But yeah, the first company that we invested in was a company called EaseAlert.
Mhm.
And there was a Dr. Blake Richardson. He went through our first cohort of our accelerator. We met him through building the community and the events and everything else like that. And we launched the accelerator. He went through the first cohort. And we had a question in our accelerator where we would ask them, like, why are you building this? And then as a follow-up, what would happen if you didn't build it? And he probably had the best answer out of all the 40 companies. I mean, so he built a pre-alert system for first responders. It was a wearable device that integrates with dispatch and also soft red like lights in the bunks of the fire departments.
Mhm.
and it would ease them into the alert. So like, I don't know if you're sleeping and your iPhone alarm goes off, right? It like creates like what do you call it?
Like you're startled?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Startle.
Yeah.
You can double blood pressure, double your heart rate, and
Okay.
then over happening over the course of 20 years, the number one cause of death of firefighters in line of duty is actually heart attack. It's not smoke asphyxiation, which people think is like,
Yeah.
okay, firefighters die in fire, but they
Wow.
actually die because of this increased heart rate that's constantly happening, and you're always in this state of like, okay, there's an emergency that's potentially going to happen. So
Ah.
they're working with the National Institute of Health to like back all the claims scientifically that it's like way better for, people's hearts and everything else. And I remember he said in the interview, he said, I'm building this so that I could save my father's life, and same with my grandfather and
Mm.
his friends and my uncle and my cousin, who are all like, he comes from a whole like family of firefighters.
Yeah.
And if he said, if I don't make this company happen, I feel like I let my father die. And it's just like, that's the kind of person that you want to back. They're not building it because they want to have a cool exit. They're not building it because they're like, oh, I had some idea and maybe it'll be cool to see in the world. He's like, I have to build this, or else I'm letting my father die. And it's
Mhm.
just like, wow, such a mission driven person. And that's the kind of founder profile that we want to back. We had one meeting and we wrote him the check.
You only have one meeting? Your due
Well,
diligence was
no,
one meeting?
I've known him for a while before that.
Okay.
Yeah, we knew him through the events in the community, and then we obviously got to spend in-depth 10 weeks with him over the course of the accelerator. And after that, we were like, okay, we have the fund. We've been eyeing you, and we really like what you're building, so we're in.
Yeah. And you guys are about to raise your fund too, and which is very exciting. What's the target size for that fund again?
Yeah, the target is 35. We already
Okay.
have some really big commitments, so I'm not going to celebrate until the wire hits.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you are very brave to be fundraising in this climate. I was wondering when you are in LP meetings and just being, a young emerging fund manager, have there been disagreements with the vision and how do you respond to that to LPs?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think at the beginning there was more kind of back push on the vision. I think that before, a very common kind of like rebuttal was that we were young and we were dealing with younger founders.
Mm.
And, in the past 3 years, we've seen this average exited founder age just tremendously kind of backpedal, where you see these young founders that are now in high school with an exit, or and people like Harry Stebbings, coming out publicly and saying, I only back young founders and I only have young people on my team. And now we're seeing this whole entire shift where AI is moving at such a fast velocity that, I mean, these kids are growing up with it. I mean, they're AI native, So it's like we feel like there's an advantage to what we're building.
Right.
Um, yeah, absolutely.
Did you
Not
have
only
a did you have an example of an LP like specific disagreement and you addressed it? You're like, I did great.
no, not as much. Just, back to that earlier example of the guy just being like, hey, you guys are young, you didn't have an exit.
Oh,
And
okay.
then him being like, hey, I'm in, like, I love what you're building. But now that we have built this massive presence and we have a lot more credibility with the people
Hmm.
who come, this is like a person like George Mathew, who's amazing, a mentor to so many, a friend to so many, having people like that come out and speak, a lot like corporate Fortune 500 executives. We're having the CIO of Citibank come and speak at our event in Florida. So it's just like now people realize, like, okay, I see what you're building. And once LPs usually come to the event and they see it in person, they're like, oh my gosh, I understand. Because if you tell them, like, hey, I have an event strategy, it's like, okay, cool. But when you see what we're actually building and you touch it and you feel it, you're just like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, I love the energy at your events. I feel like it's really well executed. And I also send it to other people in my community as well.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I think it has to. I always say like the event organizer is what really dictates the energy in the room,
Hmm.
and we'll get more events that are more like authentic conversations because we don't hide who we are, right? Like I'll be in the middle of a talk. I just had a keynote speech the other day and I cussed. It's just like I'm who I am, love me, hate me, regardless. I'll be my authentic self at all times. And I think that that's the only way to bring out the authentic self in other people is just by being like yourself. And hey, I'm not perfect. I have my own flaws and I'm not scared to wear that on my sleeve.
Yeah, I think that authenticity does ring very, very true when people meet you. And I hope that, gets to stay on for generations on end. And I'm sure that founders are very inspired by it.
Yeah, for sure.
One last thing. Is there anything about you that you wish people knew?
That's a great question. There's not much. I'm very public about a lot of
I
my,
see that. I know.
I'm very public. Um, yeah, I mean, I love to cook. I love to travel. I'm a very spontaneous person. So like, I love like just randomly just walking down the street and be like, okay, I want to go into this random place.
Your
Like,
chief of staff in the future is going to have a lovely time.
oh, they're gonna hate me. They're like, where is he? I just lost him.
Yeah, I just lost him. He turned a corner.
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing that I have talked about publicly, but I think more people need to like, I always want to lead with it, is that my story begins with my grandfather. Like that was my biggest mentor. Since I never met my father, I never even saw a picture, never heard his voice. Like he could walk into the room right now, I wouldn't know who it is because I don't know what he looks like. But my grandfather was, and my grandmother, she was very pivotal too. But he was like the person I looked up to the most and still look up to the most. Came to this country with 10 cents, had to leave school in the third grade to work on a farm. He was the first person in his family's lineage to live in a concrete building. Everybody else lived in like little huts and like mud and stuff, dirt floors, and there was no refrigeration. They used to hide meat underground back then. And yeah, I mean, like 30% of kids in his neighborhood died of starvation during the Great Depression. That's why he was like on the shorter side. He ended up coming here at 19, all completely alone, not knowing the language with 10 cents, worked farm to farm, picking cherries, sleeping in the hay barrels, pooping in the fields, and ended up making his way to Cleveland, where he ended up working on the railroad, being a complete family man and raising 6 kids. Um, you know, just really being like hands-on, being a family person. It was my biggest inspiration. I remember I moved away at 19 as well and was on my own and had to sleep in a walk-in closet. As I continued to build out my companies and starting to build the firm and stuff, I remember calling him. He was sick at the time. He was 83, and you could tell it's kind of at the back end of their story. And I
Mhm.
remember calling him and being like, "Hey, do you need me to come back home?" And he said, "Yes, I do need you to come back home." He said, "But what I need even more is for you to continue to build for the next generation. And I need you to stay out there and go all in and never forget about the story and make sure that your kids and your kids' kids do better off than you did." And it's just something that has forever stuck with me because it's a sacrifice that our families have to make, and it's up to you to live on their legacy and continue to build in their name.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Justice.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing this time with me and with us. And thank you everyone for joining us on another episode of Unlocking Venture Capital. I'm here with Justice Mendez.
Thank you so much, Sydney.